Okay. Any questions before I start? Anything that you want to raise or
Yeah.
no? Okay. Let me just
Sorry,
yeah. Go for it.
just with the SolidWorks, I have to update it.
Sorry, I didn't hear you there properly, Thursday.
Do we have to update our SolidWorks? Is it a must?
Well, I'm using 2021, 22. So the problem I'm going to have is I'll be able to read your files if you're using a earlier version, sorry. But I won't be able to send files back to you that you can read. So
Okay.
that's if you're happy with just sending me stuff and that I don't send back your files to you, then fine. But if you want me to send files back that you can read, then yeah, you will have to use the 2021 version, unfortunately, because that's what I'm using.
Thank you.
Phil, is there any chance you could make a tutorial on how for us to update?
Sure. It's not. Yeah, sure. It's not difficult though. It's just go and download it. And when you say update, you mean use the new version?
Yeah, as in I've got the 2020 version, but I want to get to kind of the updated version without having to kind of reinstall the enormous software.
Yeah.
Can you do that?
I'll find out for you. I've got a feeling that you can't. So what I can do? Okay, so let me just get a quick count. Who is anyone updated to the new version?
Negative.
Negative.
New as in like 2021.
2021, 22. It's the one
Yeah,
not from last year.
yeah. The
No,
newest,
no, I'm still on
still on the
2020.
old one. All right. So what I'm going to do first is after this lesson, I'm going to see if I can uninstall this version and install the older version. Then we don't have to worry about anything. Failing that, I will find out if you can update without. You should be able to. You really should be able to. Just quickly have a look here. Okay, I'm gonna have to look, but yes, you should be able to. My products about. If you go to your start menu, I don't know if you can see my start menu at all. You should be able to.
Yes.
And you go to SolidWorks. I think it's under Tools, and somewhere in here, the License Manager. If you open that, just okay. So I don't know. Right, I'll get back to you on that. Sorry, it's okay. So let's just sketch out a plan for the year. I'm hopefully not gonna send many projects myself for you. I'm gonna be hopping on board with Orotile. So whatever project she gives you, I'm gonna set the engineering drawing side for that, which will hopefully give you less work, and then you'll give me better quality. That's the deal. I'm only kidding. But yeah, so that's really we tie in what we're doing on this subject with what you guys do in product design. So that's the basic idea. But before we do that, or in between, is definitely going to be sort of refresher things. And right now, I want to do some revision on the things that I think that a lot of you are struggling with and might have to sort of address, and then obviously new things that we'll have to deal with, like assemblies and designing for certain processes. But quite a few of the things that we're going to be doing are just revising. Okay, so to that end, this is just something which I created just recently. And it's basically, I want to address how you go about dimensioning and what dimensioning is and why it's so important. So this is the basic shape that I've got. You can see it's just a whole lot of shapes, sort of stuff that I like to do.
Sorry, Phil.
Yeah.
Are you going to record this Zoom lecture?
I am recording, but let's just make sure.
Oh.
I am recording. Let's just make sure. It's not. I'm not using Zoom. I'm using OBS Studio. So I don't know if you guys can see.
I didn't see the Zoom always says that
Yeah.
do you want to get that allow to be recorded, and I didn't see it this time, but I might be wrong. Sorry.
No. So I'm not using Zoom to record with. I'm using another program called OBS Studio.
Oh, okay.
Do you understand? So, but keep reminding me every time because the reason I do it is because OBS Studio produces a much better quality, and it's much easier for me to edit.
Okay, sick.
Okay, and also Zoom tends to, I think it records while we're doing it, so it uses up RAM and all sorts of stuff, which I wasn't happy with last time. Right, so this is the basic shape that I want to dimension. I want to run through what dimensioning is again, because most of you don't really get what it is yet. I mean, you get some of it, but not all of it. So I'm going to go to File, Make Drawing from Part. I will update all of these settings as well. So find my A2. There it is there. Okay, I'm going to bring in the top version here. I only want one of those. And then I'm going to copy this, so that's Control C, Control V. And this is I'm going to set this is a sort of a more detailed version with radii in it. And that's because, yeah, you'll see why later. So I'm just going to align this one. Okay, align that one as well. Is aligned already. Okay, and from here, the first thing I want to do is I just want to put in some center lines because that's the way I designed it. So I don't know if any of this is ringing bells with you. It should be. So those two, just I don't know if you remember that with center lines, once you've got one in, you don't have to put more in. Like if you've got, like I've got two views here, I don't need any more center lines in this one than that one there. So once I've got those in place, I can now just drag the center line across. Okay, that's because these two views are aligned. And the same thing I can do here, I can just drag the center line down and up as well. And ordinarily I would put in CL, 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 but I'm not going to do that for now. So here's the thing about dimensioning. We don't need to do it nearly as much as in the past because most of the stuff goes through as a model. But you need to understand how the process works because you might be employed by some company that still uses it. And most companies still use it in some way or another. So you have to understand the principles behind it. So the first one is for every shape, right? So this triangle or this square or this circle or any feature. So I'm going to use the terms feature and shape interchangeably because a shape is just a representation of a feature. So for any shape, you have to have a position dimension. So maybe let's just type that in. So 1. And 2, a geometry. Okay, so any dimension needs both of those. Now we'll get to why in some cases you won't have to have any position dimensions, and in some cases you might, that's wrong spelling, geometry dimension. You won't have to have any geometry dimension, and that's only because those will be implied. Okay, so position dimension, remember, is always in relationship to some point. Now, a point is, just use this as, keep going. Point is equal to coordinates. I'm sure you've heard the word coordinates before. Right, so if I put in a point, let's go to my sketch thing. If I put in a point here, right, that point in relationship to this corner, or let's say to the center, is really just a set of coordinates. Okay, so if I dimension from the center to there, I'm going to round that off, and from the y-axis, so it's 15. These two dimensions, 15 and 52, are just a set of coordinates. So it says coordinate, means there's an ordinate. Ordinate is like a position, really. It's just like a set of the co in it says that the two dimensions together point you to the actual position. So this is the basic idea behind any position dimension, is that really you're dimensioning a point, and you're doing that by giving coordinates. All right. So in this drawing here, the starting point from which all the dimensions should take place are these center lines. So actually, let's just put that in, because then we'll know that the center line is the datum line. Right, so that's clearer. So center line, I mean, that's really, I could put in A and a B in here. I think you understand datums enough by now for me not to have to do that. So center line is pretty much like saying that is your datum line. This is where you need to dimension from. So starting from the square here, before I put in the size of the square, I need to put in its position. So if you can just follow, like with everything that you do, if you can follow a procedure and you follow it every single time you do any kind of sketch or dimension or drawing or dimension, then it becomes second nature. It's a sort of a thing that you sort of always sort of just ask yourself the question, do I have the coordinates to start the shape of this thing? So there I've got 67, and this is the y dimension, 33. Right, so you've got to have those two first if you want to make me happy, at least. But in fact, this is, if you go and have a look on the internet, any tutorial. Hello? Is that a question, or is that just someone having a chat? No. Okay, so any YouTube. Yeah.
We are dimensioning that point. Must it be the furthest point away from that center point?
Well, yeah, so yeah, okay, here it depends. It's a good question, a very good question. It depends on what your goal is. It depends on, like, is this part going to interact with another part, and is the...
for engineering out of 17.
Say that again. Sorry, I didn't hear that. Who was that was speaking?
Wilson speaking. I think he forgot to switch his mic off.
Okay. So he's commenting about his marks, I think. Wilson, nice to have you with me. So I'm just loading my settings so that they do what I want to do. Just hold on a sec. Everybody just hold on. I'm just quickly marking Wilson present. If I can find the name. Anyone else join the chats? Join the SM. Sounds like something kinky. Who's SM?
Last one.
Who's SM? Okay, so SM M. Ah, that's Sipo. Sipo. I like your abbreviated name. And Setu's here.
Hi, Phil.
Hi, how's it going?
I'm good, and you?
No, good, thanks. And
did you mark me present?
I'm marking you present now.
Okay.
Okay. And Setu's here as well. Right. Okay. So.
Hi, Phil.
Hi, how's it going?
Good, thanks. And you?
I'm well, thanks. You're gonna conquer this term, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Cool. Okay, so sorry, this is going slowly today, but this is important stuff, and I'll show you why. Hopefully, in the second session, if we get to that. This time's going fast. Right. Once you've got a position established. So was that Hamza's question about how do where do you start? Well, whoever's it was, it's a good question. So it really depends on what your aim is. For now, don't worry about exactly where you select the position. That depends on what other parts interact with this part or not. Just know that you have to have position dimensions. Once you've got your position dimensions, you can put in the geometry or the size dimensions. Okay, so just a quick word and terminology there. You'll find that people use different terms for these things. Position also gets used as location. Type that in. And geometry also gets used as size. Or some people say geometry stroke size. Okay, so those are the things that we're dealing with here. So that now that I've got a position dimension, I can put in my geometry dimensions, and this little shape is complete as far as dimensioning goes. It has a reference point, it has two position dimensions, it has two size dimensions. So let's do the triangle. So that's my x dimension, and I'm just going back to the basic point, my y dimension. So now I've got those position dimensions. I can pull this out. That's a geometry dimension, and that's all I need for now. I don't really need the angle. If the angle was important, I would then put in the angle relative to. I never can remember. Yes, it will do this. So I could do it like that. Pull it out. Okay, so that's another principle, perhaps just to remember. Always only put as many dimensions as you need, no more. Don't put in like a single dimension. If you can find a single dimension that's more than you need, it's too many dimensions. Right, so that's that one done. Okay, so then the circle here. So let's go from. I'm always forgetting. Is it y-axis? Yes, that's our y-axis, and our x-axis. So I have position dimensions, and then the size dimension here. There's only going to be one, and here is something that I'm going to reiterate over and over again. If it's a complete circle, it must have a diameter. If it's a radius, like this one, then it must have a radius. So these are two separate shapes. The only reason that I insist on this is that from the point of view whoever's reading this drawing, this is easier to decipher as two separate shapes, right? So if I make that a radius, which I can quite easily do, I can go, can't remember where it is now. Radius, right? I can do that. Radius 7.5. This means that whoever's looking at it has to now calculate what the diameter is, and if they're not paying attention, they could go use a diameter of 7.5. So better to differentiate that that's a diameter, and then whoever's looking at it, you're trying to eliminate errors as much as possible from your side. Okay, so that's why I insist that radii get an R and complete circles get a diameter. So that one's complete. Let's just do the others. So this is a slot. Right, so the slot actually needs a center line, and it needs more than that. So what I can do with the slot is I can go to my annotations, and I think it's in, yes, there it is. It's in, so let's just do that again. Delete that. Select the item. Center mark. You'll see it'll put a center mark in instantly, but you can decide on the left-hand side whether you want the slot ends to be in place, and then you can decide, like, if it's an angled thing, arc slot ends or not. So I believe that you should have the ends in place because you want to dimension. Wait, first of all, we need an actual position for this. So there are two things that you can look at here is, should you put in a center position for this item, or should you do it from one of these slots center marks? So it depends once again on your purpose, on your goal. If this is interacting with some other shape which has got to fit in neatly, and you're deciding on tolerances between the two, then it's probably a better idea to put in a center mark, which I could do. That's not going to do it. Let's see if we can go back to center mark for this one. Yes, okay, so you'll have three of them like that. So position dimension then would then be from there to there as your X dimension, and from there to there is your Y dimension, and then geometry would be between those two, so that's the length of the slot excluding the slot ends. And then you can either put in, so here you've got to decide what's important for you, either put in the width of the slot, or you can put in the radius, but not both, just one of the two. You don't need both, and so if you put in both, you're doing the thing that I don't like. Well, no one likes redundancy in a drawing. Well, no one who uses drawings likes them, let me put it that way, okay? So you just have to put up with my idiosyncrasies here. Okay, so let's have a look quickly at this series of slots. I've got a position dimension for the X, and that's the Y. And then I need just a single dimension between these two, which is another kind of position dimension. Because look, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these. And we need to know, once we know that this one starts from the center lines, we need just to know that what the spacing is. So it's 15. And all we're going to do here is put in a number. So you can go to annotation. There's a shortcut, and I forget what it is. But you'll just put in 6, for instance. Make sure that's right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6. Okay. And then one other dimension, which is a diameter. Right, so something that I haven't spoken about yet, or haven't sort of highlighted, is like, look at this dimension here. What some of you have tended to do is to go like that. Now, technically, that's not incorrect. I mean, yes, it's not incorrect, but it's not how you should do it. You should put the size dimension or the geometry dimension in the same shape as where the position dimension is. All right, so let's say, for instance, no, we're not going to be able to do that now. Yeah, let me quickly do this. Where is it? Annotation. I want to put in a, oh my goodness, sketch. Sorry, I'm forgetting how to do a section view. Okay, section view. Put it in the wrong place. Let's go across the square. There we go. Oh, what happened there? Okay, so what you could do, what's feasible, not what's advisable, is that, like, if you've done a section view like this, here you've got your square. You might want to do something like this, 12.5. But to me, that's incorrect. The size or the geometry, those two, 11 and 12.5, must go in the view in which you've put the position dimensions. Mustn't go in another view. That's also because of a simple fact of whoever's reading this drawing shouldn't have to go looking for the dimensions of some feature or shape that you've put the position dimensions in for elsewhere. They shouldn't have to do that. If they have to do that, you're encouraging them to make errors because they're having to go and look. And if there were two features close to one another here, which we don't have, and those had very similar dimensions, they could mistake one for the other. Okay, does that make sense to everyone? I'm going to assume that's a yes. So clarity is, thank you, whoever that was. Clarity just is super important. All right, so now once you've got all your dimensions in place, other than your external ones, your major outside ones, which you also need, you can simply select all of these. I hope this is going to do it. Goodness, I've forgotten where to find this. Someone help me. Drawing views, tables, line to edge. Okay, so you can, when I find it, you can actually just get these all to rearrange themselves. I think it's because, it might be because I selected, I'll tell you what we'll do. We can't, F5, yes we can. Okay, so I can select, like here I can select dimensions. So I think the reason that it didn't do that last time is because I selected something other than a dimension, and then go to align. There we go. Right. So I can just space evenly across or down. Forget which one it is. Auto arrange. Auto arrange. There we go. Okay. So you've pretty much got everything nicely arranged from smallest to biggest. Smallest being on the inside, biggest being on the outside. Okay, so a lot of the work that you think you might have to do, you don't have to do. Once you've pulled all the dimensions out, excuse me, sorry, it's an aftermath of a throat infection. Once you pull all the dimensions out, I think it's actually in fact possible to select all of the dimensions and auto-arrange. Yes, so you do it in one shot. Everything's auto-arranged in one shot. So I hope this helps you. If you've got your position dimensions and you've got your geometry dimensions and everything's in place, actually arranging the drawing is a simple matter of going to this little button at the bottom, filter, sort of select all of the dimensions, go to the right hand button here, let's do that quickly, go to the right hand button, align, and say auto arrange, and it'll do it for you. So there's a huge amount of work that you don't have to do. Just make sure that you've got everything in place so that it is done. So so what I wanted to go through these bits here, but I thought what I would do is let's go back to first principles and just hop across to this thing here. If you do this right, you won't have to do any dimensioning or much dimensioning of any sort. So as long as you dimension your sketches fully so that they go completely black, you've pretty much done the position dimensions. There's a position dimension. There's a position dimension. So 19 and 40 are position dimensions. They go relative to the starting point. And there's my size dimension for this item, and there's my size dimension, and so forth. I can go through each one of these shapes, and I've in fact put in the position and size dimensions, and that's the only way I can get the sketch to go black, is to put those two dimensions in. So I've done all the work already. Why do I want to do it again? Right? So I can go through this one. It's got exactly the same characteristics. You can see there that's a size, that's a position dimension 14, 30 is a position dimension, there's a size dimension, and then 15 is the spacing between them, and there's that 6, right, and here is exactly the same. So I've just shown you how to draw all of these just so that you understand the principle, but you can actually shortcut all of that if you've done the work in your sketches, then you just go to this button here under annotation, under annotation, the second button from the right, you select model items, you select whichever one of the items are not dimensioned. It'll put all the dimensions in for you. It'll auto-arrange them. If you don't like the auto-arranging, you can go and do that yourself. But it's all there. Everything's in place. And if you've actually downloaded my settings, it'll use like diameter instead of radius. So not a lot of work. Just understand what you're doing. And make sure you do those things in the models, and all that work is done for you. You just use that button. It's like a magic button. Any questions about that? Does that help you?
It definitely helps. I'll be using this.
Okay, all right.
For sure.
Okay, good. Okay, I did go through this last time, but obviously you guys were too busy. You were trying to focus on getting the modeling right. All right, so that's all. That's all done. The next session, because our session's about to end, I think, so we can go and have some tea and coffee and warm up a bit. The next session, I'm going to go through this one here. What happens when you've got features which get in the way, like these lines here are not actually this line here is a tangent line, and that is anyways, it's not, these lines at the outside here are not actually geometry. They're geometric features, but they're not shape features. You dimension them differently. So we're going to go through that. At the bottom is here as well, how to dimension those things if we don't use that button first, which I think we can still use as well. But we'll go through all of that as well, and then what things not to dimension if you ever do need to do sort of manual dimensioning. Okay, is everyone still with me? Or has Zoom?
Yep.
You still with me? Okay, because it seems like Zoom is being generous today. Normally they tell you that you're about to... Hello? Is that someone talking to me, or is that someone just having...
Hamza, you're really, really quiet.
Hamza, sorry.
Wait, I'll try to speak a bit louder.
There
What
we
I was
go,
trying to say.
Yeah.
Earlier it showed change the settings.
Okay, no, stop. You were loud for a second and then you went away. So whatever you're doing when you...
No.
Sorry, Phil. I think he's trying to
Can you hear me
say.
now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
I was saying that earlier it showed that you changed the settings to make the meeting unlimited minutes.
Did I?
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, well look, I think we need a break. 40 minutes is enough. So if you don't mind, I'm going to stop this meeting, and then I'll see you again in 15 minutes. Is that okay?
Okay.
All right.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, see you shortly. Okay. Cheers.